Arizona voters last week rejected a dedicated funding source for education, but that still leaves great financial need in public schools.
We're being told that there's no indication that revenues are going to increase in the state. That's the projection from the legislature. So we know that we will not be, according to projections, getting any increases at all.
In our district, which serves over 5,400 students, we've experienced a reduction of over $5 million in the last 3 years, in the last 3 fiscal years.
Tonight on Arizona Week, the prospects for more educational funding and the situation with schools struggling to teach kids on a budget.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support. Once again, your moderator, Michael Chiha.
Proposition 204 is history, beaten almost 2-1 in last week's election. Yet, as one analyst said, it doesn't erase the funding needs for Arizona public schools. To get a look at the issues and one take on what schools might get from the legislature, we spoke with educators and a newly elected state representative. First, Representative-elect Ethan Orr, a Tucson Republican. Representative-elect Orr, thanks for being with me.
Michael, thank you. I appreciate it.
And congratulations on being elected.
Thank you. I appreciate that as well.
Do you see more funding coming out of the legislature for public education in the next year?
Well, I know the governor has made that commitment, and I certainly have made that commitment as well. One of the things that's important to me, I know she made a deal with Amazon to start taxing internet sales. That's something that's very important to me, not only to make sure that we have funding for education, but to make sure that it's something sustainable and it's not going to go up and down with the variances of the economy.
Now, one of the things we're looking at is with the expiration of Proposition 100, which is the temporary sales tax next May, is up to $1 billion in revenue that is supposed to be dedicated to education goes away. The Amazon money won't make up for that. Do you see the legislature finding other money to sustain educational funding?
I think we're going to have to. I mean, one thing that I've already started looking at is where can we close up some of the loopholes. Again, that's not going to generate a lot. Basically, our budget is projected to be about $8.3 billion. Revenue is, with the continuance of the sales tax, was $8.6 billion. So you're right, you're still short about $700 million. I think broadening the tax base to cover internet sales, looking at the loopholes, and then other revenue devices are going to be necessary.
You mentioned Governor Brewer's support for more funding for education. In the same breath, she said she wants more accountability out of education. Do you have a notion of what she means by that, and what are your thoughts about increasing the accountability coming out of our public education system?
Well, I think education, as we all know, is a gateway to opportunity. And so it's very important that there's accountability, but it's also important that there's support at the teacher level. I mean, I know a lot of, in fact, my parents were teachers, and the biggest thing that we can do is make sure that the money that we're funding for education gets to the teachers and to the classrooms and really supports them at that level.
Now, the governor has also made educational reform one of the pillars of her administration over the last few years and going forward. Do you see reform occurring in public education, and is it all going in the right direction from your perspective?
Well, I know I'm going to push for reform. In fact, before I started this campaign, I met with each of the superintendents in my district and kind of got their thoughts, because it's not just about funding education, it's about funding what works. For example, the JTED, the Joint Technological Education Program, it works. It gives kids a vocational opportunity. In 2008, they cut the freshman year funding. It put a lot of the programs in disarray. I want to restore that funding. Also, the making sure that students can read by the 3rd grade. I think that's an essential foundational principle in education, and so I'm very interested in K-3 education.
You mentioned JTED, and in fact the private sector work that you do is dedicated to job training and placement. Would you talk about that a little bit in relation to your feelings about educational reform?
Absolutely. In fact, we have a very high unemployment rate, but the interesting thing is if you break it down by sector, in different sectors, it varies quite a bit. In fact, if you look at healthcare, for example, we have about a 4 to 5% unemployment rate. So the key is to create training programs and opportunities to move people from other sectors or give them the skills to succeed in that sector.
And do you see the public sector being involved in that, government involved in that, or do you see that being entirely a private sector domain?
I think it needs to be a public-private partnership. I'm a big supporter of the Workforce Investment Board, and I'd want to work with them to make sure that they have the funding and the support to create training programs. The one thing, having created training programs myself with my company, I think it's very important that the training be tied to a job and be tied to industry. If I'm going to entice a high school or even someone that's graduated already into a training program, it's got to have real-life experience and it's got to have the promise of a job at the end.
What you're talking about here is the connection between education and the economy, the workforce, and we know that that's a key to it. Everybody talks about that. But how do you get people to recognize that traditional educational paths aren't for everyone?
Well, I think you do create alternatives for people, but the baseline numbers or the baseline reality exists. If I have a college diploma, I'm going to earn 90% more than if I don't. And if you look at job recruitment, which I think is very important here, 85% of the companies that we're trying to get to this city are knowledge-based companies. And that's why we also have to look at dual enrollment programs that make it easier for students who are in their junior or senior year to work on a baccalaureate or an associate's. And we need to support the research programs here at the U of A, like the Office of Technology Transfer.
And what do you say to the critics of the state legislature in all of the cuts it's made to public education, saying that that really hurts economic development? That, in fact, was one of the arguments of the proponents of Proposition 204.
Well, I certainly wasn't part of that legislature, and it was difficult to analyze what they did not being in the room. I mean, the reality was our budget, because of an over-reliance on sales tax, was cut in half. It went from about $12 billion to almost $6 billion. So they had to do everything, including mortgaging the capital, to keep things afloat.
Well, do you think that the legislature will be able to restore educational funding with the idea in mind that it will lead to economic development? We have companies coming here saying they can't find enough educated workers.
Absolutely. One of the things when I was in the Office of Economic Development, I looked at Palo Alto and what they've done with computer, but also in Boston with biosciences and technology. And I do believe that education, a well-funded education system, and a well-funded workforce is the key to bringing companies here. So I am 100% behind making sure that we have well-educated, well-prepared students.
Ethan Orr, Republican representative-elect from District 9 here in Tucson, thanks so much for speaking with me.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
The issues with educational funding are acutely demonstrated in Tucson Unified School District, which would have seen a $17 million shortage for next school year erased if Proposition 204 had passed. Without it, Superintendent John Pedicone and his school board face some serious decisions. The district faces a $17 million deficit in the coming school year. How did that come about?
Well, there were a couple of things. First, the state revenues were reduced by about $50 million. You can look at a $1 billion shortfall in the state of Arizona. And that was, by the way, in addition to the 1-cent sales tax that had been approved by the voters. In addition to that, there was about $1 billion statewide that were reduced from public education. Whenever you hear a number, you can always take 5% of that, and that's Tucson Unified. So we were reduced from state revenues by about $50 million over the past 5 years. In addition, we lost a significant number of students, and that was as a result of a number of things, including kind of the urban phenomena of families moving away from the centers of cities to the outside, to the suburbs where homes are more affordable and larger, as well as 1070 had an impact as well. We also lost some students to choice, which you would expect we would have a lot of charter schools and students move back and forth. So the combination of those things resulted in roughly 1,500 students per year to a tune of about $50 million. So over the past 4 or 5 years, it's been a $100 million deficit in this district.
So your funding, of course, is based on a per student allotment, correct? So when you make reference to the loss in enrollment, that's where some of the money goes.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah. Each student at 4 or 5 years ago was worth about $5,500 in terms of state revenue.
How'd you get so far off in a year's time? Because you currently are operating on a balanced budget, right?
Correct. Yeah, well, what we've been able to do, there was some stimulus money that helped all school districts to get over the bump, and then we had a fairly significant cash reserve in a number of different budget areas that we had to expend, including balance carry forward. In previous years, we were always able to carry a couple of % of our budget forward, as all districts did. So this year, that basically caught up with us in terms of not being able to have any of those revenues any longer, the cutbacks from the state, and then again, we've balanced out and kind of flattened out in terms of student loss. This year, we think we're going to be around 400 or 500 student loss, or flat, which is a good sign. And we believe that hopefully will be the trend for the next year or so. But all of those things added together to result in what we find ourselves, the situation we find ourselves in today.
And the $17 million, what's the assumption about what you'll get from the legislature next fiscal year? Is it that you'll get the same as you're getting now?
Well, that's a good question. I've just met with our business manager this morning, as a matter of fact, and based on information from yesterday's ASBO conference, the Arizona School Business Officials, we're being told that there's no indication that revenues are going to increase in the state. That's the projection from the legislature. So we know that we will not be, according to projections, getting any increases at all. This next year, we've been promised anyway and you've heard the governor make some statements about this, and some members of the legislature, that when Prop 204 was being campaigned, you heard conversations from them and discussions about how we have got plenty of money now in the legislature to make up for that shortfall. So if you were to believe that, every indication is that we will not lose where we were last year. But we know the legislature, and when the governor made these statements, she also talked about how there'll be conditions associated with whatever money we get in public ed. So we have no idea whether or not we're going to see additional increases this year or not.
Now, the school board has given you some guidelines for how you need to go about erasing this deficit, and you and your staff are working on that at the time. It includes discussion of school closures. Could you detail that a little bit for us?
Sure. Yeah, last spring we came to the governing board in study sessions to talk about what the projected deficit was going to be this year. We made a very strong case for the reality that there are a lot of things that led to how we arrived at this deficit. And one of those things simply is the number of students we lost and the number of schools we still continue to operate. So it's clear that we really have to look at what the right size of this district is. And schools are not just a finance issue. They're really a program and resource issue in terms of what we can do in the classroom. So we began the process of having public meetings. We had, I think, a very intensive and expansive process to get public input. We started with town hall meetings. We moved to open houses and focus groups that got together from across the community, looking at knowing the conditions and examining exactly where we are, what recommendations could the community make about what we need to do to be able not only to close the deficit, but to do one more important thing from our perspective, and that is don't continue to take something from the community, experience the loss that other cities have seen when you begin to retract resources, and then end up going into what some people have referred to as a death spiral. You close schools, you begin to take back resources, and pretty soon people say this is not an attractive place to be. So what the community embraced was the idea that when they looked at all the conditions, that school closure was imminent. They believed that. In fact, what was really interesting was that the community of people that came together said we should be looking at school closure on a grander scale. And the governing board is concerned, and legitimately so, about how can we manage school closure. And so as a result of that, they really directed us to look at 10 schools, consider focusing on middle schools, because there's a number of reasons why that probably makes some sense. And then we're going to go to the board next Tuesday night when they've approved consolidation criteria with that list of 10 schools and probably some other ideas that might help the board ultimately to make its decision. So we will be closing some schools for the next school year.
Because you've done such a thorough job of outreach to the community as you've just described, do you feel that when the school board makes those decisions, it will be less difficult for the community to absorb?
I think the community at large will accept it because of the work that we've done. But if it's an individual in a community where their school is closing, it's just an emotional situation that any of us would feel.
In the suburbs, rapid enrollment growth creates other funding issues for schools. I spoke with Sahuarita School Superintendent Manuel Valenzuela for a look at the issues in his district south of Tucson. What's the financial picture now for Sahuarita schools? How are you doing financially?
Well, relatively speaking, the Sahuarita School District is working to maintain a favorable situation from the finance standpoint. And the reason I say that is because despite the very significant budget cuts, we have continued to grow over the years, although the growth has slowed in the last few years corresponding with the downturn in the economy. And we also are fortunate to have the support of local overrides that are currently in place, which help to provide important programs such as fine arts and physical education and providing school counseling and guidance programs in our schools. So we're fortunate in that regard. However, we have been, like everybody else across the state, been very significantly impacted by the reduction in state funding.
The overrides that you make reference to, those are voter-approved temporary additions to the budget that include increases in taxes, right?
That's correct. They're local levies that are voted upon by the residents of our school district.
And how much do those amount to in relative terms for your whole budget?
Okay, well, our override, which we have in place right now, generates about $1 million a year in support of some of these programs that we feel are really important.
And the district enrollment is growing rapidly, even though you said there's been a slowdown with the slowdown in the economy. How do you meet that rapid growth given the financial tightness that everyone has been experiencing?
Well, we have to be very resourceful. In our district, which serves over 5,400 students, we've experienced a reduction of over $5 million in the last 3 years, in the last 3 fiscal years, and that's divided between our maintenance and operation budget and also our capital budget. So, like everybody else, we're striving to do more with less. And now the funding is connected to growth. So growth is a good thing as far as school funding, and which is helpful. But with the reductions, coupled with the increase in various requirements and educational reform initiatives, does require us to really stretch our resources beyond even what has historically been a relatively lower funding in comparison to many of the other states across the nation. And now we're striving to implement new reform initiatives without the significant corresponding investment in financial resources.
The defeat of Proposition 204 last week means that public education in Arizona won't have a dedicated funding source, but everyone seems to be talking about increased funding coming out of the state government, the legislature specifically, for education. Do you have confidence that that can happen in the next fiscal year?
Well, I don't know if I would use the word confidence, and again, confidence is a relative term. I choose to be optimistic. I believe that it's important for educators and the community at large to be informed and to be engaged with the legislative process. Like you have heard the comments that some folks at the state level, including our governor, were not fans of Proposition 204, but remain strongly committed to the educational process. And hopefully that common ground that we have and that desire and that understanding that education really is not only an economic engine, but just a very important entity to the quality of our life and our democratic way of life, that everybody has that in common, and it'll allow us to go forward and to look for solutions to the funding situation.
Do you expect to have conversations yourself with state legislators, perhaps from your area of the state, but also in Phoenix, about funding to educate them about what the needs are?
Absolutely. I think it's critical for school leaders and for the community as a whole to take time and to make it a priority to engage in dialogue and to have conversations about education and about how we can work together, we can find common ground, leverage our resources, and really make education a priority, because I think most people would agree that a quality education is a critical link to a vibrant Arizona. We don't always see eye to eye on how to get there, but I think if we keep in mind what we have in common, hopefully it allows us the opportunity to move forward and to find real solutions.
Governor Brewer, as you mentioned, is talking about more funding for schools and trying to get it. She ties it to the reform measures she's pushing and to more accountability from schools. How do you think your district is doing when it comes to reform and accountability?
Well, I think that reform and accountability are an integral part of a quality education system. I think it's important to really look carefully at accountability so that it is valid and it is sound. I think most educators, most of my colleagues that I talk to, we welcome, teachers embrace the importance of quality, of effective instruction, and of reasonable measures of progress. And so I think we look forward to being at the table as we continue to move forward on that. I think it's really important that we do this together because if we don't, sometimes there are outcomes that are somewhat problematic. For example, currently there's laws that are looking at tying student assessment on state tests to the evaluation of teachers. And again, I think most teachers want their peers and want themselves to be of the highest caliber and quality that they can be. However, the implementation of these so-called value-added measures have some real question marks that need to be worked through. There's many confounding variables, and there's questions about stability of those effects over time. And so we just want to make sure that we're using accountability in the right way.
Talk of education reform and accountability goes to the classroom and teachers. What's being done at the Educate the Educator level to meet the demands? We'll ask Ronald Marx, Dean of the University of Arizona College of Education. Dr. Marx, welcome.
Thank you.
What comes to mind when you hear the phrase education reform?
Well, accountability is always a really big issue these days, and the accountability has to do with the dissatisfaction I think many in our country have with our educational performance. Even though I think generally our education system is doing a very good job with many, many students, but we can persist in having a gap between the affluent children of affluent families and children of poor families.
Are we reforming education in Arizona, to your knowledge?
Yes, we are in many ways. So one of them is it has to do with accountability issues, particularly evaluating teacher performance and principal performance. That's been a major issue. We've had other kinds of reforms, like the Move On When Ready for high school students who are ready to go on to college could do that. The Move On When Reading, requiring all third graders to be reading at grade level before they're able to go to the fourth grade.
Big picture assessment of those reform movements, are they improving education?
I think the answer is still out there. We don't really know yet.
And teachers bear a lot of the criticism for what goes on with student performance. Is that justified?
Of course, teachers are important. They always have been important, and it's nice that I think the public, as well as scientific and educational research, has shown that teachers have a big bearing on student performance. Not all performance, of course, is the result of the teacher. We have to have good curriculum. We have to have safe schools. We have to have enough school hours. So educational policy certainly has something to do with it. But even beyond that, we have to have a society that supports student growth and development. Not all of student growth and development comes from schools. It comes from family, from other kinds of social institution, distribution of wealth, and the advantages that some children have that others don't enjoy.
You're in the business of educating educators, of teaching the teachers, training them for the classroom. How has that changed in regard to the reform movement over the last decade or so?
Well, one thing that's happened is that we have realized, and perhaps late to the game, unfortunately, but many of us have realized the importance of having our teacher preparation programs embedded in schools. In our program here at the University of Arizona for early childhood and elementary certification, and also for secondary certification, which is a little bit different, but our programs are largely in the schools. A half to two-thirds of their effort, of their work, is done in schools. Our faculty get in their cars and drive out to schools. School districts give us classrooms to work in their schools. We outfit those classrooms with technology, working with the districts. And our students, our undergraduate students and our graduate students in our secondary program, these folks are in schools 4 days a week, in some cases 5 days a week. They're taking classes in those schools. When they're not in our classes, they're out on the playground, they're tutoring children, they're meeting parents, they're doing everything that teachers do. So they're learning how to do the job in the context of doing the job. That's a major change.
And are you seeing successes for them in that regard? Are they coming out better prepared?
Absolutely. In fact, the State Department of Education has run surveys in the last couple of years where they send a letter to each principal in the state who has a new teacher and they say, Mr. Chihak is a teacher in your school, and would you rate Mr. Chihak on these 10 dimensions of teaching performance? And at the U of A, on each of those 10 dimensions of teaching performance, our graduates have exceeded the state average in every one of those 10 dimensions. So I think it's clear that our graduates are high quality.
Because you provide teachers to public schools throughout Arizona and elsewhere for that matter, you probably get a lot of feedback from school superintendents, principals, and the like. What is the general theme of what you're hearing of late from them?
They like our graduates. We have a body called the Professional Preparation Board that meets monthly through the school year that has representatives from those districts who help feed information into our teacher preparation programs so that they're really tuned to the needs of those districts with immigrant children, bilingual children, children with disabilities. We have an opportunity to work with them, and we get feedback from the districts on how to make those programs better. They hire our graduates, and they like our graduates. We don't produce enough science, math, and special ed teachers. That's a problem. We're trying to work on that. But we're in a marketplace here, and that marketplace is drawing those kinds of gifted undergraduate students into other disciplines and to other fields, too.
We have about a minute remaining, and in that time, tell me your view of Governor Brewer calling for more educational funding, but at the same time going back to that issue of accountability that you discussed. Are we seeing a connection between those two? Should we be getting more funding if schools are doing better?
I think it's a reality in this country and in this state that if we want more money for education, we're going to have to put up our chops. We're going to have to show that accountability. Mind you, education is already accountable, more accountable than almost any other professional sector in the country. We have assessments of kids, we have assessments of teachers, we have all sorts of accountability. So I think it's a fair thing for the governor to say that. I think she and I may quarrel about actually how do we do that accountability and how do we do the statistical manipulation of the data and what kind of data do we count. So I think there's still questions to be answered.
About a half a minute remaining, and in that time, talk a little bit about the statistics. Some data is not available, you were telling me before we came on air. How does that work in the assessment process?
Well, we have data for teachers. Our teacher evaluation system that's been required by the state legislature and approved by the State Department of Education, State Board of Education, requires that a substantial amount of the data be based on student growth, and we don't have all the data that we need to do that adequately.
Dr. Ronald Marx, Dean of the College of Education at the University of Arizona, thanks for speaking with me.
My pleasure.
More on funding for education is on our website, azpm.org. That's our program for Friday, November 16th, 2012. For Arizona Week, I'm Michael Chihak.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support.